some of the work that we've been doing. The videos were done just over a week ago, because last weekend we had our annual Zoom day. We were going to try and do it with Ukraine, but Zoom, working in another country, especially like Ukraine at the moment, has been very difficult and it freezes quite a lot. So they very kindly did a couple of videos which we're going to show you. First of all, one video from Misha. Misha's our Ukraine director. He's also our driver, our translator. He collects us all the boxes and he's told what to do by the ladies in Ukraine. But he does a fantastic job, and this is actually not going to be his voice. So if it looks a bit strange, because he had a bit of a sore throat, so he made the video, but he got his son Danik to overspeak it. So it looks, if you knew Misha, you'd think, oh, what's he saying? What's happening there? But because you don't know him, I probably didn't need to tell you that. Shall we play that first video, please? Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, I'm thrilled about the opportunity to speak to you, and I greet you in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. I would like to tell you about our life and how dramatically it has changed since the war began. In the morning, on the 24th of February, my wife Lena had woken me up saying that many cities in the country are bombed and that the war has started. I did not know what to do. I was shocked, and then my dear wife had got me back into my senses, and we knelt down and prayed. What else could we do? God has been so good to us and to our area. We have heard loud sounds of big explosions probably 7 times, but we believe that our Lord will keep us safe to the end. And even if not, so what? The first months we were going down in the basement every time there was an air raid siren. Our children had moved in with us to be together and support one another, so the house was full. Our office was not closed, and we continued our work helping people. Later, we discovered that because so many people had been going to the west from different directions, the roads had been blocked, and people needed a place to stay overnight before going further. So the word got around that we had got people stopping at Alpha House for a night or two. That was for about 2 or 3 months. Then refugees from the war started asking if they could stay for longer. So we let the people stay for a couple of months while they look for a place to rent, while they look for a job, and move on with their life. Moms with little children are particularly vulnerable, and we let them stay for longer. Tens of thousands of refugees now live in our city. With your help, we try to provide at least some of them with some food and toiletries. And more than 2,000 such packages have been given out. But that's probably not a lot, considering that there are over 70,000 internally displaced people here in our city. Now we try to talk to them, try to make friends with them, share gospel, and invite them to church. Along with the food and toiletries, we also give them Christian materials and lists of addresses of the churches nearby. Later, when it was warm outside, we started organizing special programs for refugees. We invited our Ray of Hope group for visually impaired to share their testimonies, sing, and recite poems. People suddenly realize that they are not in the worst situation, as they can see people that are in much more difficult situations. And these blind men and women have comfort and hope in Jesus Christ. Another day, we invited an evangelistic singing group. They have a Christian refugee from Donetsk since 2014 who shared his testimony, and they understand that life is not over. They can have a new start. And again, they have heard who can help them. Unfortunately, it is quite cold now, and we are back inside the office. But we still talk to these people. We invited volunteers to help us, so several people are talking to refugees while they're registered. Those who live in Alpha House are happy to help around. They agreed to clean outside on Saturdays, and that helps a lot. Almost all of them go to church on Sundays. 4 ladies have repented and are preparing to be baptized. We had a really difficult time when we didn't have any fuel at petrol stations for over 2 months. We couldn't go anywhere, even bring food and toiletries for packages. Good thing I filled it up before it started. So it was enough for some time, but then one had to wait in a long queue for several hours to get even 20 liters, if you're lucky. Thank God this situation is much better. Though we have some good news from the front lines, the war is not over. Only God knows when and how it's finished, but we certainly have hope for the future, hope in Jesus. Your country is helping ours a lot, and our victory will be yours as well. You are doing good things with our hands. We will share the same glory in the heavenly kingdom. Meanwhile, we need to help people, our neighbors, and lead them to Jesus Christ. We can do it together and with God's help. Thank you.
So you can see it's been a struggling time for them all there. And the office over there has 6 staff as a maximum. So they've all been changing their roles from being secretaries or being childcare officers to actually serving the folk there in this area. So let me run through some of the things we have been doing up to now and been able to do, and what we hope to continue to do in the future. I think you all know where Ukraine is now, it's often on the news, isn't it? The red areas were the situation after 2014, after Russia annexed Crimea and the initial Donbass region. And I think you now know that they've got the southern area down to Kherson, which is just above Crimea there, but Ukraine are currently fighting back. You may have heard Misha say that there's only been one attack on the bridge that you saw earlier. There was actually another attack in the Cherkasy region just yesterday, in a place called Smila, which is where we've planted a church, where a couple there are looking after it. Yuri's the pastor, and his wife Alla sells flowers to raise funds to run the church. So a very small church, probably has about 20, 25 people going to it, and children's camps in the summer months as well. But praise the Lord, as far as we know, no one's been killed there that we know. So Hope now, as you probably know, works in healthcare, and this was one of the hospitals we visited. In fact, the young lady in between the doctor and I, her name is Hope, and we're hoping she is a doctor herself now. She was in university when this was taken. We're hoping that she's going to join us on the Board of Trustees soon, because we could do with some medical sort of advice. But we often work in many of the hospitals at Christmas time, or when we've been able to go, unfortunately not for the last couple of years, taking presents and gifts in for the children in the hospitals. And we're always given complete freedom of speech. We can share our testimonies, we can talk of the love of Jesus for them, and encourage the children to come to know the Lord. And the same in the schools, in fact. We also help to finance the rescue shelter, the Cherkasy Rescue Shelter. This is for children that originally used to be found on the streets and were taken into the rescue shelter, but now it's more to do with parents losing their parental rights, and children are taken there until other families can be found for them. Currently, it's closed and there are no children there, and the children in most of the orphanages, like this one in Milovka, have all been taken out of the country. Many are in Romania, Hungary, and some have gone over to Italy. And this was one of our typical visits there, and the children would always do a lovely display of singing and dancing traditional songs for us. And Vasily, who's the director, is at the back on the right-hand side there. Huge man, often picks me up when we visit. This is one of the pre-independence homes. We had 2 flats where we had 7 or 8 girls living in each flat, and these girls were taken from the internats, or sometimes from families who asked us to help them, and they're taught basic domestic chores, how to cook, how to keep house. They also did Bible studies under Larissa and became involved in some of the local churches. 2 of those girls now are actually in America, and in fact, you can't see very clearly, the one to my left as you're looking at her name's Sasha. She got married just a couple of weeks ago in America to a young American man. So is turning out wonderful for her. Our prison work has come to a bit of a close at the moment in the actual prison because they've closed prison 62. This was when we visited them. We had many opportunities there of sharing with the governors within the prison, and they were happy for us to share again with the staff within the prison too. It was a very difficult time to start with, trying to get any feedback from them, but as soon as Manchester United was mentioned, then the conversation flowed to a point. But also we were able to go into the church that Hope now planted within the prison, where there were 3,000 prisoners. They had it down to about 800 until about a year ago when they closed the prison to try and save money within the government. So now those prisoners have all moved on to different prisons, and they were all long-term prisoners, by the way. But some of them, like this man here, who came out of prison, moved to a village on the outskirts of Chickassie, where several ex-prisoners live. But he found the Lord when he was in prison, and he planted this small church there that we managed to visit on one occasion, and these were some of the first congregation within that church. He and his wife on the top left there were leading the church there. Bit different to First Baptist Church in Chickassie, which has about 600 members, and there's always one we love to visit and to sing. They have a huge choir of around about 60 people, something like that, within the choir itself. And when you're standing on the stage near them, the sound of their voices seems to go right through your bodies. They're so enthusiastic with the singing. But there's lots of other churches too. This was a small church in a village called Yasnaziria that we've helped to support. The two men on the top left there is father and son. Anatoly was the prison chaplain, and his son Sasha is the pastor of this small church. David John is there with us on this particular visit. And on the first time I went to visit this church, there were about 100 people there in national dress standing outside for a 2 p.m. service. And I said to Misha, why is everyone in national dress? Is it a special day that I should know about? So he went off and came back and explained that there'd been a bit of a difficulty in translation, and they were expecting the President of England rather than the President of Hope Now. We carried on. Churches over the last few years have all been coming together, and Christians especially are coming together no matter what their thoughts of religion are, whether it be the Orthodox Church or some of the Baptist churches or free churches, coming together to pray on the town square in Chickassie and encouraging other folk to pray with us too. And then further afield, Anastasia, the young lady on the left here, is reaching out to many of the children in the outlying villages. The villages, I wasn't here in this country 100 years ago, but I imagine some of them are similar to the villages there today. There's very little happening there. There might be a small hall, there might be a small church, and in Ukraine it's mainly elderly folk that are living in those villages because the younger people want to move to the cities. So Anastasia reaches out to the children mainly, but because the children have now started to bring their parents and grandparents to the various events that Anastasia does, that outreach is reaching other age groups as well. And they play various games, they try to encourage people to work together. You'll notice that most of the girls here have got headscarves on. That's a tradition in the villages, that children and ladies wear headscarves. But we were also able to twin the school in Shubinistavi, this school here, with Ashley Junior School. And we took some of the pictures out there for the youngsters there to see. And for a time they wrote to each other, but that's finished now. But it was a really encouraging time for the children there to know that people here in this country are interested in them. And this is Anastasia and her husband and her 3 children there. Just a few months ago she gave birth to Ephraim, who has just been blessed in the church by Pastor Kuzi. We work with several elderly folk too. This is one of the residential homes that we used to go to. And this lady, Maria, had a real heart for the Lord. And she made us laugh so much because she would say she has to be there. The Lord put her in that place because there are 200 other residents in that home and they don't yet know the Lord and they haven't got long. She used to bang her fist on the table. We must tell them, she used to say. But praise the Lord, she's actually with the Lord now. Then we still got the Bible school, and that over the past 2-3 years has still continued to run. We have around about 20 young men students, and sometimes we encourage ladies to come along for the Sunday school teaching classes that we do too. And there's a couple of the teachers there as well. So that's been able to continue. We've been able to ensure that they're getting a good theological teaching. Pastor Coos in here and his wife Larissa in the middle. One of the pastors that we support from First Baptist Church. This is his family. They foster, I think it's 8 or 9 children, and they have 2 or 3 children of their own. Misha is one of his sons, is the top left there. He's now married and has his own family, but they just love having a house full of children. And you may have heard earlier on the video with the Ray of Hope group. This is the group. It started off with 5 or 6 people and it's now grown to 50 or 60. And it's overseen by Larissa, our childcare officer, and she encourages these people to encourage others to come to know the Lord, and they also go to other churches and encourage other local churches as well. They sing and they dance and they love reciting poems too. Some of the poems can be quite long. And at Christmas time we were able in the past to meet up with our students that we support. We have students that were supported by folk in this country through their various educational degrees. And in the front there you can see some of the Zozelenka group, and some of you may have seen them in the past, who used to come and travel around this country to encourage folk to support the work in Ukraine. And this one, I love this picture because Anastasia was trying to encourage the children how to play pass the parcel without ripping all the paper off in one go and eating the sweets straight away. But this was another Christmas time that we had there. And this is a picture of 2 of the ladies actually that work for us in Hope Now and their families. So the second lady on the left there, Lida, is our translator and works in the main office. And the 4th one on the right hand side is Fieta, and you'll hear from her in a few minutes. She's the director of Compass Park now, and they're her family, which we always enjoy visiting with. They can all sing beautifully, they're all very musical. And when we went there for dinner one day, they sang to us after dinner and they said, "Okay, John and Ali, it's your turn to sing now." I don't know if you've heard my singing, but they didn't want to hear too much. But so she runs Compass Park. Normally in the mornings before breakfast, no matter what the age is, whether they be young or old, it's exercise times for about 20 minutes before we go into breakfast and then go through the rest of the day. And this is one of the children's camps where we do the early morning exercises. And many of our volunteers that go too are able to release any inhibitions. And you'd be amazed at what people will do when they're encouraged to do so and they're not being watched by people they know. And these were 4 of our volunteers in one of the skits that we did. And working down by the river, to encouraging the youngsters to learn how to use canoes and to have fun on the water was always something we encouraged. In fact, the little girl at the front there, Victoria, is now married and she's actually living in Russia. She married a Russian boy and that's where she now lives. And there's always a surprise with water when you're about to have your picture taken in Ukraine. You can see that she wasn't expecting that, bless her. But then in the evenings there's a time of relaxation in front of the bonfire and roasting marshmallows and things and reflecting on the day and having a time of prayer before bed. And this is where Zozelenka also used to come for a time to do some of their practices in preparation for their tours in coming to England. But then things changed, and so far the figures that I have are since the 24th of February, over 6,000 people have been killed and over 9,000 injured. 9,000 of which 720 were children. since the 24th of February. So things have changed drastically. It's been so sad. And this is actually a satellite picture. If you remember the original picture, you see Crimea down in the south there, and Circassian is somewhere to the north. And the bright coloured lights that you can see there are actually the fields of corn that Russia set on fire when they were trying to demoralise the Ukrainians. Some of you may have heard of something called Holodomor, which means death by starvation. In 1934, Stalin surrounded Ukraine and took all the food out of it, and millions of people starved to death. And this is one of the fears today that we're hearing about, because people know that it's going to be cold, it's going to be a slow death for very many of them there. So we've been able not to go ourselves, but we have been able to pack lots of boxes of aid, and thank you for what you've been able to give us too. It's made a huge difference. We sent out 44 boxes last Friday, which arrived yesterday. So they're getting there within a week with the help of Ivan, our van driver, and we've got another 44 to go out next Friday. Ivan came on his own last week, so I had to stack them all outside for him. And then Ivan packed them all in the van, here he is, and set off and got there safely. So we give thanks that his journeys have been safe. Claire, who works in the office with Brenda and I, is responsible for packing all the boxes and getting them tied and listed. And she also oversees the newsletter. There's a couple on the back there. And we have a team of volunteers that come in and pack the newsletters, and we post them out. So that's another one of Claire's responsibilities. And then they get there to Ukraine safely, and people are there and so grateful to receive blankets, warm clothing, all sorts of things, whatever goes, including foods that we're currently sending out. Even down to the villages, we take some of the clothes out to the village areas where many of the folk don't have the opportunity of going to shops. So it's all being used, every single bit of it. This is a group of some of the people queuing up to come into our office to collect aid when we're there. And even the work within the church. This is the Sunday school camp that they had there that Anastasia helped to run as well. So we're encouraging people still to come along to the churches and to worship whenever they can. And many people like this lady, and it's all about individuals really. This lady's name is Alona, and her house was totally destroyed. She came to us and she was sharing with some of our Ray of Hope group that she knows that she can trust in God. There's nothing more to trust in than Him. She says, and now I'm going to rebuild my life. So far, I have 2 pans and a frying pan, 2 cooking pans and a frying pan. She started to rebuild her life. And this lady, Anastasia, visited one of the villages, wasn't able to leave her house at all because she couldn't walk. But another elderly lady that we know passed away, so we took her wheelchair and gave it to this lady, who can now go out and sit in the garden sometimes. And at the moment, there are certain requirements that we need: wound dressings, bandages, medications, some of the dry foods that you know about. And one of the new ones is solar lights. Only this last week, Misha has said if anyone can find solar lights to send to us, they would be really helpful, because they're having power cuts now through most of the nights, and that's likely now to get worse because of what we've just heard. So that's given you an idea of what we've been doing up to now, and I'd like now to put on the other video, if I may, which is made by Svieta, who runs Compass Park, and she'll share something about the work that she's been doing from her point of view.
Greetings, friends. I am Suzanne Karchenko, the director of Compass Park. Compass Park exists to spread the good news of Jesus Christ to different groups of ages and walks in life. After the tragedy started on 24th of February, the way of spreading it has obviously changed.
Andrei Boyko, the property manager, was called at 5 in the morning the very first day. His mission is to rescue fields, people from unexploded missiles and bombs.
поле. Люди косять пшеничку, і тут така краса в нас лежить. Бортовища смисні. І тут лежить така краса. Тільки-тільки комбайн пройшов. Отака у нас, хлопці, робота. Спасати рідні поля.
This specific missile hit into a house of an elderly man who was sleeping just behind the wall in his bedroom. The rocket, by God's mercy and grace, hasn't exploded, so his life was saved. Occasionally, he meets with his son Andrei, who is also fighting. Lift Andrei, actually both Andreis, and all our soldiers and military leaders in your prayers. They often witness about the miracles the prayers do on the fields of battle, both physical and spiritual. Greetings, dear friends. My name is Tamara Kluchnik. I've worked as Campus Park head accountant since 2006. First of all, I want to thank you for your help, for your generous and open hearts. Thank you for praying, helping financially, and faithfully standing with us. Since 24th of February, the life of many Ukrainians changed. Many lost health, jobs, houses, became refugees. And it is so good they can receive help thanks to your givings. The government warns us about long, cold, and hard winter. Our enemies can't kill us all at once, so they want us to suffer. Their aim now is critical infrastructure to make us cold and starve. But our trust is the Lord, His help and His refuge. Thank you for letting the Lord to use you to touch Ukrainians with His care and love. May He give you joy and bless you abundantly.
Our sponsored students and volunteers, along with studying, are helping wherever they can.
Hi John and Jana. Recently I have gone on a volunteer trip to the occupied cities and villages of Ukraine. My friends and I distributed aid to the adults and kids. We gave children happiness, showed them that God is caring about them through us.
Yana is making trips to be with children and all they meet at liberated places of Kharkiv region. Their desire is to bring them a bit of joy and, of course, to share of Jesus who cares. Vadim takes time to do occasion trips to the east. It requires extra cautious and courage and trust. They meet the soldiers, meet the pastors. They are there to pray, to encourage, to help. Pray please for our spiritual fighters who are likewise on the battle.
The First Lady also likes to share the statistics that 50% of our children are born premature these days because of all the stress and worries. Our ex-deported Filipino student and Campus Park volunteer, Vitalina, whose baby was born these days, shares her story.
Hello. These days have been hard for Ukraine, and Ukraine is being bombed a lot lately. A lot of rockets are sent here, and a lot of them they come to the nation and they do much harm. But still, no harm was done for our city, and this is a big blessing. It happened that these days I gave birth to my child, to my first baby girl. Her name is Silvana. And with God, there was no air alarm when I was delivering the child, but for others, there are a lot of air alarms, and they have to go to the underground, to their basement, to the bomb shelter, and to give the birth there in with not the best conditions. And after I gave the birth, and there were air alarms each time we had to go to the underground, carry our babies with us. Actually, the actual nurses, they helped us, but it wasn't much easy to go downstairs and upstairs, and like each few hours. And sometimes we had to stay in the underground for about like 4 or 6 hours, and it is not much warm there, so I was afraid about my kid to not get cold, but everything is okay with her, praise God. And now I'm home, I'm safe, and when everything is okay, I just want to say thank you to all of you and each of you who prayed for me, for Ukraine, for our city, for our people, and that we are safe, because in so much, when there is so much grief and so much harm being done to our country, still we and our families, we are still safe. And this is a big miracle, and I know that this is because we pray and you guys pray for us. Thank you for thinking of us, praying for us, and taking care of us.
While serving the Almighty God, we can echo what Apostle Paul. But my life is worth nothing to me, unless I use it for finishing the work assigned to me by the Lord Jesus, the work of telling others the good news about the wonderful grace of God. That is what our task is. Thank you, friends, that we can do it together, the work of telling others the good news about the wonderful grace of God. God bless you.
Thank you, John. Why don't we take some time in prayer, pray for Ukraine and for the work of Hope Now. Maybe a few people can lead us out in a loud prayer.